So welcome back, all of you, to one more very interesting question from my very recent workshop on data engineering. And it covered a bit of AWS, Bedrock, Gen AI, etc., etc. So fundamentally, I just wanted to answer the question about what's the relation between data engineering and Amazon Bedrock. It might be looking very a silly question, but ultimately, let me share my screen and give you my perspective on this question, which is very important. If you really see, first of all, data engineering is all about designing, building, you could call maintaining the systems that can move, maybe it can store, it can transform data. That's the backbone of any AI or analytical system. So you have these components like data ingestion, data pipelines. Data ingestion could be done through API logs, database sensors, pipelines, which you do it with a lot of tools like Airflow, Kafka, AWS Glue, etc. Then you store these data in the warehouse, maybe use Snowflake or BigQuery or a Redshift. Or if it's an unstructured data, you could store it onto an S3 bucket or a Delta Lake, etc. You might then model the data, and then finally, you have quality and observability, which is very important. When it comes to the relation between the data engineering, you need to understand the fundamental concept, whether you're doing analytics, you're doing AI, ML, you're doing Gen AI, is all about data, right? Because without data, all these looks very dumb.
What do you mean by that?
Number two, the way you operate this data was very different in AWS. Basically, if you're doing a project with a customer where you have an analytical workload, you would build your data for that, and then you would go and if you are trying to get into a services which is part of your machine learning or Gen AI, you start building data in Gen AI. Of course, you don't need data unless you're customizing, etc. But ultimately, there are some tools which has gotten into AWS, thinking like unifying this makes a lot of sense, right? So we'll talk about that. But since it's a simple tip for you to tell that there is data engineering bedrock, it's not like a relation, it's the foundation. Whatever you do in elements like historical analysis like BI, you do current analysis like business activity monitoring, you're doing something like performance engineering like EPM, you're trying to do predictive analytics, prescriptive analytics, whatever you do, okay, data is the core, right? So coming back to how AWS looks at it, if you look at this tab called analytics, you will find like all these tools helps you at the data layer. It helps you to embed, you helps you to little bit take the transform data into semantic vector, etc. You'll see a lot of these tools, but the pick for me is the SageMaker. Now there was an attempt from AWS in the last 6 months. The traditional SageMaker now is called SageMaker AI, but the Amazon SageMaker tries to bring the data in a unified way. This is a very interesting tool for you to really explore because ultimately the question should be thought about this, irrespective of what you're trying to do for customers on analytics, AI, ML, Gen AI, data is the core. Is there any tool by which you can integrate this world? That is your SageMaker, okay, which is called Next Gen SageMaker. You have something called Unified Studio to discover data, put it to work across different workload and data. So why am I talking about this in a Bedrock tips? Because you could see that you also get access through the Unified Studio Bedrock. And let me just reiterate, there's nothing called Bedrock from a perspective when you're building solutions. In a solution stack, you try to compose different part of the different components into one solution which can be delivered to customer. So you can also integrate your Bedrock development experience, your Lakehouse. Everything is part of your SageMaker. Please understand the erstwhile SageMaker is called SageMaker AI now. That remains. And then you have the tool here called SageMaker, which is doing a next gen kind of a model where you're trying to integrate it. Okay, hope you answered. So just to reiterate, quick synopsis. Data engineering is a core for any workload you're trying to do on analytics, AI, ML, Gen AI. From an AWS world, we have different tools for different layers of ingestion, pipeline, storage, modeling, transformation, quality, observability, different tools. Once you build this data, instead of trying to build one for each workload, because these are very like a big brothers, right? Analytics will become AI, ML, then you have Gen AI. A lot of these solutions work together. You could use tools like SageMaker to integrate this data stuff. And then you have the SageMaker AI, which is a regular SageMaker uh, tool, which is used to create modeling. And you start looking at it from uh, for a data scientist to build core models. That's it from now. See you all in the next video. Thank you for asking this very, very important question.